फिल्म जगत हो, राजनीति हो या क्षेत्र हो व्यापार, जुर्म फरेब की हर गली से गुजरे जो कह के खबरदार, झूठ का पर्दाफाश करेगा सच का पहरेदार। हर तरह की खबरें लेकर पेश है मुंबई रफ्तार। नमस्कार, मैं हूं सैयद शादना और आप देख रहे हैं मुंबई रफ्तार न्यूज।
So I think he manages to create that pain for you. There is no answer to it. I mean, that reminds me of a wonderful thing which he's mentioned also, that his character, Maharaj says that, you know, you read Gita so many times, but all the time you still feel there is new meaning to it, because the text inherently has meaning, and I feel that happens to us. Even if I meet my friend again after so many years, I still find that I don't know him enough, because this is the book he's written. So is that the Raj Supe which I know, which left for Rishikesh? No, through the book I feel no, it's again back. So it's very interesting that what actually the answer to your question is, he manages, because of his free flowing, but still there is some kind of anchoring of his life which comes in his writing. His people are very truthful. They can be buffoons, but they're still very truthful. And that sometimes you feel that maybe life has not brushed him in a way which has, you know, made him bitter or made him cynical, you know, because I think spiritual people can also be cynical, but he's not. So I think that's what is the takeaway for me, and he gives me energy, and obviously if you read his book any 4 pages and you will know, अरे ये तो मैंने पढ़ा नहीं था, अच्छा हुआ पढ़ लिया. You know, there are so many small stories. There's so many lovely. Jad Bharat is such a one of. I'm not going to tell you the stories. He's going to tell you the story. So, sorry. Done.
I'm sure everybody's sort of glad seeing the detailed monologue by Mr. Makrand Deshpande. He normally does that. He's a writer-director. I'm an actor. I render prepared speeches. I don't really. So for me, it's very difficult to emulate that. A few things about Raj Supe's writing and his work and he as a person. संक्षिप्त में बोलूँगा लेकिन मैं कम. So I promise. As far as Supe's writing goes, there's one unique thing about artists, be it any profession. Supe is of course today I'm sure people don't put pen to paper, even Supe uses a computer. But even in those days when I knew him since eons now, he used to write a sentence and never ever, you know, rewrite it. So that's a very special quality. I wish I could do it in my profession. I can't, you know, I do a retake. But that's something which shows that he's blessed with that quality, because it's very difficult for us to even write a small piece without trying to rephrase it. That's one. Number two is he as a person, I've never seen him negative, and it's been a very, very long time. I've never seen him flustered. I've never seen him. I've seen him angry, but I've never seen him negative about anything. So, if that question that you asked about 180 degrees and 360 degrees cartwheel, I think Supe would answer saying that, are you sure you're seeing it the other way around already, or are you there? So I don't know. I really, it's very difficult to really say it in a concise fashion as to who the person is. But he is my friend, philosopher, guide, guru, and everything. So that's the shortest form which I can give. Any other? What is the next question that you asked? Anyway, that's it.
So much
I
for
got
now.
lost in Max monologue, but wonderfully done, Mac.
This has come from a lot of criticism. When I wrote my first book, and there were women in that book, female characters, and everybody told me that you have cardboard female characters. You don't know women at all. And and my calling required that I did not know the woman. But as a writer, all the characters, all the women blamed me that all the male characters are true and all the female characters are just ideas. Because a female character is supposed to have flesh and blood. And you have never seen women. So what I did is, I said, okay, I will do study. and then what I did is, no, and then I realized that this material is available in books. So I read a lot of books that has polka dots and all of that. And I did a consolidated fraud. But then it is real. And that is the idea of good writing. The idea of good writing is that the reader should think it is real. And I was convinced that it is now sounding real, though I have picked it up from here and there. But I think that's about answer. I don't know the exact reference to the book.
Okay, before I read a few pages, just a few words about the man here. It was I think 93, 94 when we met and we spent a lot of time together. 93, 94, 95. I think Raj had just given up his job at advertising. KK was about to give up his job, and I had no job. So every evening, or 6 days a week, we would meet at this not so famous Lunar Cafe on Santa Cruz East because it was very cheap. I think 11 or 12 rupees a thali. And I think they used to live in a place which is right next to Lunar Cafe. So that became an adda. And I remember before we actually got talking, I used to go there and they used to be on a table together with a few other people. And I would look at Raj Supe and I would say, my God, there's Tolstoy there. And when we met, told me that he looked at me and he said, my God, there's Dostoevsky there. So there was a Russian connection. This is before he was not a sannyasi and I was a struggling filmmaker. Now he's a sannyasi and I'm still a struggling filmmaker. Okay, so a bit of the novel. The story was interrupted by the shrill ringing of Shaman's phone. He showed the screen on the phone to Indranil. Vasundhara flashed on the screen. I guess my phone ran out of battery, said Indranil. Shaman picked up the phone. Hi Vasundhara, where are you? Hi Shaman, Jai Guru. Sorry, I couldn't come to the store. It was getting close to feeding time for the girls, so I wanted them to be brought to the hotel room. They look like little angels, very sweet. Beautiful babies indeed, said Shaman. They will be little monsters if they're not fed on time, she said, laughing. I've been trying to reach Indranil. His phone is switched off. Here, speak to him, said Shaman, handing over his phone. Indranil spoke into the phone, informing Vasundhara that he would be late and to get some sleep. After he hung up, he turned to Shaman. Shaman, you swung from having a direct divine vision of Ma Annapurna to having fallen from your sannyas vows all within the span of 1 week. What kind of a life is that where you're swinging between such extremes? I'm stunned, Indranil said, shaking his head as if to make sense of something unbelievable. What a situation he found yourself in. It's beyond anything I could imagine. Believe me when I say this, Indranil, the last thing I wanted was to be in such a situation. But I was helpless. It was like fighting a huge tidal wave or a mammoth riptide. I was drowning. Forget staying away from her. I couldn't even stop thinking of her every waking moment. The speed at which our relationship changed stunned me. But I was like a helpless leaf caught in a tempest. Man, Shaman, it must have been so crazy. It was crazy. What's more, I was a proud man. I had been so confident that I would never fall into the clutches of karma. But lo and behold, I was caught so badly that I hardly recognized the person I had turned into overnight. I had dealt with a lot of women in my past, but it had never been at but it had been at a very superficial level. I had never known attraction or felt even an iota of it ever. So I thought I was immune and beyond it. Never did I imagine, even for a second, how life changes once you become passionately involved with a woman. For me, that one encounter at the cave was like someone throwing a lit matchstick into a petroleum well. It was just a raging inferno. After that, my throwing buckets of water was not going to abate the blaze. How did you deal with the shaman? The master on one side, your own guilt for forsaking your oaths, and of course the deep attraction. How did you come to terms with all these opposing forces without losing your sanity? I can't even imagine. At the time, I was continuously assaulted by the thought of how things will shape up. Did I have a future with Shambhavi? Was I setting myself up to lose everything? And then my mind would suddenly switch from concerns of the future to those of the past. I would think of all that happened in the past, my life before Shambhavi and my life after Shambhavi. I did not know if what was happening was right. This gave me great anguish. I so desperately wanted to see that I was alive in the present but not living in the present. Alive in the present but not living in the present. That's a deep one. Go on. When I thought deeply, I realized my pain was not coming from here and now. It was coming from another source. And what was that source? It was coming from contemplations of the past and the future. One day I was reading late into the night and I happened upon a quote by Arya Chanakya. At that moment it was godsend. It dispelled all of my doubts and made my mind clear as crystal. What was the quote? Gatishoko na kartavyo bhavishyam neva chintayet. Vartamanira kalina vartyanti vichakshana. And what does it mean? The past is not worth mourning. Don't worry for the future. The wise advise us to live by the present time. Beautiful, Indranil exclaimed. The clear-headed Vichakshana, as Chanakya called him, resides in the present. And that's precisely what I tried doing. Was that difficult? Indranil asked. It was challenging to implement in the beginning, but slowly I got the hang of it. Living in the present means paying attention to what is around us right now and engaging deeply and wholly with it. To achieve that, I had to destroy a bad habit of many lifetimes. Bad habit. Yes, the bad habit of being lost in the past or the future. Think about it, Indranil. The only life we have is the one we are living now. There is nothing more to life than the present. People think that the present moment is just a fraction of a long life, a dot, a small parcel. But that's not how it is. The truth is, the present moment is an eternity. We experience life only in the present. Even the past and the future is felt in the present. We may live a life of 60 or 100 years, but God gives us only one moment at a time. And that's the moment for me to stop. Thank you.
Shaman rose later than usual. He was curled into a fetal position, his body stiff from the sleepless night before. It was as if he did not want to face the day. He could hear his grandfather, already awake, moving pots and pans in the kitchen. Shaman washed his face, picked up his cloth bag and quietly exited the house. He headed towards the ghat. He walked down the empty street, dragging his feet, head hanging low, kicking the stones along the way. The most spectacular colors of dawn painted the eastern sky in pinks, oranges and mauves. It was a crystal clear day. A gentle breeze blew in from the Ganga. Calls of sparrows, parrots and mynas created a cacophony of sounds. With a heavy heart, Shaman walked to the last step leading to the water, sat there and stared at the river for a long time. He took out a newspaper from his bag and with great deliberation laid it before him in a neat square. Then he joined both his hands in prayer and looked heavenwards. Head bent towards the newspaper and armed with a razor, Shaman commenced shaving his head, beginning from the base of his neck. With each swipe of the blade, a part of his soul felt scraped raw. As each jata fell onto the newspaper, a part of him felt amputated. It was only when his lower lip quivered and his hands began to shake that Shaman realized he was crying. He clenched his jaw, trying to control his emotions. He took a long time to shave his head. There were cuts and smaller tufts of hair in several places. With both hands and a controlled, concentrated force, he crushed the paper into a tight ball and threw it into the dustbin along with the razor. A beggar sitting near the trash can asked, "Did someone die in your family?" Shaman ignored him. Another beggar sat a little distance away answered, "He is a sadhu. They need not shave their hair for a domestic death. They are beyond all those things. But they shave their heads on full moon days." Both were wrong. Shaman turned out their voices and walked into the Ganga. Once waist deep in the water, he threw his saffron dhoti into the flowing current. The cloth gracefully floated away within seconds. He then removed his Rudraksh mala, touched it to his forehead, and placed it on the water. It sank immediately. He took off his holy thread and held it in his palms, letting the Ganga take it away. Then he let his wooden khadav, the kamandalu and danda flow away too. Shaman watched the river swallow his only belongings. Stripped of his robe, he felt like his skin had been torn from him. Now he was just a mass of bleeding flesh. He stood stark naked like the day he was born and cried like a child. Hot tears rolled down his cheeks and mixed with the cold water of Mahaganga. The pain in his chest was so tight that he was unable to breathe. Bared of everything familiar, he stood there in aching vulnerability, looking heavenward for answers. He simply did not know who he was. In a moment, it was all over. He felt like an orphan, bereft of his identity. Shaman cried loudly, trying to embrace Mother Ganga in his arms as he took several dips in her water. "Who am I, Mother?" he asked between sobs. Shaman continued to take dips until his tears stopped flowing and only dry sobs racked his entire body. The first ray of the morning sun peeked over the horizon and bathed Shaman in its orange light as he emerged from the water. He offered water to the sun god and stilled his mind, a practice that now came naturally to him after long years of practice. In a flash, he understood. Robe or no robe, nobody could take away who he was. His essence, his bhakti, and his faith would always remain with him. He remembered the words of Guru Nam Yajnananda Maharaj. The path of a renunciant has ended for you, but your relationship does not end there. It will go on. The other worldly relationships are not of here and now. They are of forever. Shaman stood motionless, trying to assimilate all his thoughts and emotions. Suddenly, he felt a pair of hands around his waist. He was confused for a second, but then recognized the touch of his grandfather, who was handing him the ends of a brand new white dhoti. Without speaking a word, Shaman tied it and embraced the old man. Once again, his eyes filled with unshed tears, seeing his grandfather's kind thoughtfulness. To Shaman's shock, he too had shaved his head. "It's a new beginning for both of us," his grandfather said with a smile. The old man's eyes brimmed with tears. Grandfather and grandson emerged from the water. The old man gently ran his hand over Shaman's head. "There are a few awkward tufts left. Let's find a barber who will shave your head properly," he said, and added in a soft voice full of emotion, "Silly boy, slinking out of the house without telling me? You are never alone, Shaman. I'm always there with you."
मुंबई रफ्तार न्यूज़ की खबरें पसंद आने पर हमारे YouTube चैनल को सब्सक्राइब करें और लाइक करें।